Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from IT Visualizer channel. Today we'll continue our lab, the COVID-19 lab. This is the third video. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have been discussing that after we have created a USB and we have installed on it, or this USB contained on it multiple ISOs for multiple operating systems and multiple bootable images, for example like Heron Boot and Dart. All of this was put on one USB, and this USB was bootable. We will use this USB to put it or to insert it in a virtual machine, and then boot from this USB and install our Windows Server 2022 on the new virtual machine that will be created on the VMware Workstation Pro virtual machine. As I said before, we have created this multiple USB operating system. So as I said before, you can create one ISO and make it bootable on a USB using a program called Rufus. This is very famous. But to have multiple ISOs for multiple operating systems on one USB, we use a program called Vintoy. Anyway, after creating this USB, we have created a virtual machine, and then we have inserted this USB in it. But the problem is that there is no direct way to boot from USB from VMware Workstation Pro virtual machine, and there is no direct way to boot from USB from VirtualBox virtual machine. So I have discussed in the previous video two ways to boot from USB on VM Workstation Pro and VirtualBox's environment. So there is no direct way that when you have a bootable USB that contains a bootable image or a bootable operating system to be installed, there is no direct way to make it boot from a VM Workstation Pro virtual machine. Okay, we have discussed two ways in the previous video, and then we tested the first way on the VM Workstation Pro, and it worked. And then we have created a new virtual machine and installed Windows Server Data Center 2022. This is not a final image. This is not a final product. It's a preview, and we are testing the different functions on this operating system, or this newly operating system. It will not be released until maybe the beginning of 2022. And then after installing this operating system, we have this virtual machine. We have two network cards on this virtual machine, and we make teaming between them, and then we assigned a static IP address, and we have named this virtual machine after installing the operating system on it to our server or our intended server name. So now I have prepared our virtual machine to be a domain controller. We have our server name done, we have our static IP address set, we have our different options activated. For example, we have remote desktop option activated, so we can access this server remotely. So let's begin. In this video we will begin working on adding Active Directory domain services and then promote the server to be a domain controller. Okay, but before this I need to give you a small tip, okay, about naming our domain. So this is one of the best practices for naming an Active Directory domain. Before that, we all know, or we all have a common practice to name our Active Directory domain name to .local. This is a very common practice we all do. Even I have done it in my work. Okay, but this is no longer a recommended best practice, or not a recommended thing to do. Why? Because .local, .lan, .corp, all of these are sold by ICANN. So you will find on the internet, okay, the advantage of using .local, .lan, .corp, that these domain names cannot be routed, or they are not available on the internet. Okay, but now they are being sold by ICANN, so you can find nowadays a website that at the end it will be .local or .lan or .corp. So it is not anymore a best practice to name your Active Directory domain .local, because especially if you are not going to route this domain out to the internet. So it's not a best practice to use .local, .lan, .corp. This is not a best practice. Okay, So what can we name it? If we want to name a domain or an active directory domain and don't need to route it to the internet, what is the name that we can use? We can use something called .internal. This is not available yet, and I will use it in this lab. Okay, and here we can see that this article is asking or is telling us why we don't need to use .local.lan.corp. As I said before, it will be routed to the internet, so we cannot use .local.lan.corp, and there is this link why you should not use local in your domain .local anymore. So you can you read the article carefully. Okay, and secondly, if you are using a public domain like company.com, you should avoid using the same name as an internal active directory name. So if you are going to use your domain name and route it to the internet, some use .com. So here is saying that you should avoid using the same name, so you cannot make your internal active directory, okay, the same as using it out on the internet. Okay, so for example, company.com, you cannot use this as an active directory domain name even though you are going to route it out to the internet. Okay, why he is saying here? Because you will end up with a split DNS. Split DNS is when you have to have separate two DNS servers managing the exact same name, okay, or the exact same DNS forward lookup zone, increasing the administrative burden. This is because logically, because company.com, maybe someone has took the name on the internet. Okay, so it's not a best practice also to use .com, okay, as your local or active directory local domain name. Okay, you can use this out on the internet, or you can use two names, one to your inside active directory and one for the outside. Okay, so you have two different domain names, one for the outside on the internet and one for the internal in or for your local or administrative use. Okay, so this is one of the best practices. Here you can see that he's telling you that there are two naming options for you. So what is the better naming option? Here is saying that, for example, the first one is to use an inactive subdomain of a domain that you use publicly. For example, if you have company.com, it is token or it is taken on the internet, you can use ad.company.com or internal.company.com. This is advantages to this preferred approach. Only one domain name needs to be registered, even though you can later decide to make part of your internal name publicity access. For example, you can make your outside domain to be company.com and your internal domain to be internal.company.com. So this is a best practice to use, and you use only one DNS, so this is better, and no one will have something called internal.company.com. So here we can see that the article is discussing it. You can simply separate the manage internal and external domains, or internal domains will be globally unique. So he is referring, as I said before, to use this type of naming. So you can have company.com as an outside domain, and you can use your internal domain name to be internal.company.com. So this is a best practice. Okay, or this is the now best practice. Okay, so he's saying, however, if it's not feasible for you to configure your internal domain as subdomain, so what if you don't have this option? You can use another domain that you own which isn't used elsewhere. So he's telling you that, for example, you can use company.com for your outside domain, and you can use company.net for your inside domain, but on one condition, not to have this used as on the internet. But to be simpler, you can use internal instead. So what we will do in this lab, we will not use this approach, but what we will do, we will name our local domain instead of .local to be .internal. This will be much better, and I have seen this in one of the videos on the internet. A pro was saying that you can use .internal because it's not used on the internet. So this is one of the best practices, and I intended you to see this article just to make sure that you're naming your domain should be used according to this article, which is very good. Okay, So let's see how we will name our domain. And actually in this lab we will discuss another thing here. This is a very good PDF that it's called Windows Event Log Analysis. We all know that all of the events in the Windows server or any Windows operating system, it is recorded in something called event log. Okay, and this PDF analyzes, or it's categorizing the events according to different, or according to what these events refer to. So for example, the normal categorize of Windows to the event logs, they have three categories, something called security and system and application. This is the most popular three categorization for Windows to the Windows event log. But here this PDF make them or categorize them in a different and simpler way. So here for example, one of the categorization, he's saying account management events. So here he is listing a couple of event IDs. So remember that everything which is or has been done in the Windows will be recorded in the event log, and these event logs are recorded as numbers, and every number refer to a certain event. Okay, so here this PDF is categorizing Windows events according to a simpler categorization process or a categorization system. For example, here is saying account management events. All of these number or these event numbers are referring to an account which is created or modified. This account could be a local user account, a domain user account. This could be on a domain controller or on a local machine. So these events, okay, from so to so, these are all events that refer to a user account that has been created. So we can use these events to know that, for example, we have a user that was created in our domain or on our local machine. So this is better, okay, or better categorization. Windows categorize them in a different way, and they categorize all of the events as a whole in something called security. So everything related to auditing the users, auditing the access to files, auditing to access on files on the file server, and all of these events are recorded in a category called security. So they are all in one categorization called security. So it is very difficult to get out, for example, the account management events from the security log. Okay, so you need to search it. Okay, and for example, you need also to search the security event logs if you need to get, for example, the access of file or folders on the file server. This also you need to search a couple of times. So we will do a little trick. We will categorize, or we will recategorize our event log and make it much simpler, so we can see the events more easily and spot them more easily. Okay, so here, for example, how we will do this, we'll do something through something called custom view log. I will show you all how this will done, but take care, or we will use this PDF as our reference to recategorize the event logs. So let's begin our lab and see how we will do this. Actually, additionally to having the installation of the creating of our Active Directory domain. So let's begin. So here we will open our virtual machine that we have it installed, or we have installed Windows Server 2022. As I said before, it's the most light system that I have used, or the very quick and light system I have used in most of, or in all of the Windows Server operating systems that I have used. For example, I have used 2016 and 2019 server, and this is the lightest, or this is the most lightest one. Okay, it is very quick and very fast. Okay, so here we will go and access our virtual machine using the administrator account. We have set the password in the previous video. So here we can see that there is a folder called shared folders. This folder, this is a folder that it is shared between my laptop and my virtual machine, so I can copy things from my laptop or my physical machine to my virtual machine, or from my host to my guest. And this is done using an option in the VM Workstation Pro virtual machine, something called shared folders. Okay, and he mapped them as a network map drive, so this is a very good option. I didn't find it in the Hyper-V, and it is not so easily done in the VirtualBox. Okay, so here now we'll open the server manager and begin adding our Active Directory domain services, and after that promoting the server to be a domain controller. Okay, here disk management. Here we'll do some changes to the drive letters for my partitions on my server, because here I prefer it to be in order. For example, here I have two partitions, C and D, C and D and E, but here my second partition here, it's not labeled, or it doesn't get a drive letter, so I will give it a drive letter. Actually, this is the second partition and doesn't have any drive letter, even though I have formatted it during the installation of Windows. So here we will, this is my second partition, I'll give it a drive letter, we will give it an E. Okay, and I have my CD-ROM as D. Okay, so we have two partitions, I have my C partition and my E partition. Okay, and my D as a CD-ROM, but to have it more in order, I will change the DVD and give it as an F drive, and then give my E partition the D drive. So I need to have it CD F or CDE. Okay, this is, I need it to be in order. Okay, so here I will change the drive letter to D, because D was not available before, now it is free. So here we have CD. Okay, and then E. Do not do this step unless the partition doesn't have any data or any programs installed on it. Okay, so now we can see there is two services not running. Actually, this is a very good this dashboard to give you a view of what it's not working. Here we see that Edge update service, it is stopped automatically, so we can start it. And the update orchestrator service, it is pending, so it started but it will not start immediately, something called automatic delayed start. Okay, so anyway, these are not too important services. Okay, so we'll leave them, and then we'll go to the manage, and then add roles and features, and then next, and then next, and then we have Active Directory domain services, and then add. And I was intending to add the the Wins server, but anyway, I will not add it now, I will add it later. Wins, it is something, or it is a legacy for DNS. This was used before the DNS appeared. Okay, so it's a little bit obsolete now and it's not needed anymore, but you can still use it for some older operating systems. Okay, next, and then install. Then we will wait until the installation finishes. We will name our domain, promote this server to be a domain controller. We name our domain PatientZero.Internal. Okay, and this will be a new forest, and this will be our first domain in our new forest. Okay, and I said before, why we are naming internal, we have said this before, so this is not routed out to the internet. Okay, so next, and then we will have our first level and functional level Windows Server 2016, and this will be also a DNS server and a global catalog server additional to be a domain controller. So it will be a domain controller, a DNS, and a global catalog server. And this, we put a password for the Active Directory recovery username. This is used when there is something in the Active Directory. We have a username and a password to access the Active Directory in a way called, or something like the safe mode. We use this password to recover the Active Directory. Here, this is the NetBIOS name. It is PatientZero. This is the database folders, the log folders, the sysvol folders for the Active Directory. And then next, we have discussed all of these options before, or what is the database folder, what is the log folders, and what is the sysvol folders. Now it is installing or promoting the server to be a domain controller. And then install. Here we can see that only one service is not running, which is the age update. I think it will start automatically if this is needed. Okay, anyway, so now we are installing or promoting the server to be a domain controller. And then after finishing this, so now we have our server promoted as a domain controller and the server was restarted. Now we will begin the process of making or recategorizing our event log. Okay, so we will recategorize the event logs in a way that we can access and view the information in the event log more easily. So for example, we will categorize some of the events and we will call them account management events. This is the events for creating users on the Active Directory. Okay, and we will make another categorization, for example, and we call it account login events. This is the events for the login of the accounts on the domain. Okay, so this is another categorization, and this categorization help us to view or to get the information more easily. Okay, so here I'm just checking the IP of my laptop. Okay, my IP of my laptop is 196.168 sorry 192.168.1.1. this is my IP of my laptop. Okay, and my virtual machine, it's 192.168.1.10, so we are on the same network. Okay, anyway, it's still loading the group policies and the other things. Here we can see it's a little bit, it's hanging somehow, but I am waiting, so I left the operation. So here I will open the PDF and I will show you all this PDF that we will use. It's something called Windows Event Log Analysis Reference. Okay, so we will use this reference and recategorize our event logs. Okay, so we can view the event logs and read them and understand them more easily. Okay, so we will categorize them by some, for example, if we can return back here, so I'll show you all. Here we will categorize them by some things. For example, here we categorized events by account management events, account login and log off events, access to shared objects, schedule task logging, object access auditing, audit policy changes, audit Windows services, wireless LAN auditing, process tracking. Okay, and additional program execution logging and auditing PowerShell use. Okay, for example, we will group events according to the accounts created on the domain controller or on a local machine. We will categorize or collect the events and categorize them in or according to the account login events. So for example, this will be only the events for the login and log off of the accounts on the Active Directory. Okay, so if for example we need to know when a user have accessed a certain machine, we can go to this categorized event that we will create, or categorized category called account login and log events. I'll show you how we can create these logs, okay, or this new categorize, or these categories, and we can access them. And we also will make another categorization to access shared objects. So so for example, if we need to know there is a certain user that access a certain file on our file server, we will group these events in a group and we'll call it access to shared objects. But we need to make sure that the audit option is enabled, but I will show you how all of this will be done. It's a very good categorization. You can see that the following events will be recorded on the system, where the account, as I said before, he is giving you a brief about every category that he is or every category that he is grouping the events according to it. Okay, so account management events, these are where the accounts are created or modified. So all of this number of events that is appearing in front of us, these are the events that will be written in the event log when an user account in the Active Directory is created or removed. Okay, so here we'll go, this is our domain, it's PatientZero, and then we will access it. We can see that it is more similar, the interface is more similar to Windows 10 20 H2 operating system. It's very similar to it. So here we will open the event log and then begin creating our new categorization. Okay, or we will make something called custom view log. What is the custom view log? It is something that we will tell the event log to only show us certain events IDs, okay, that we will specify to him. So this is like filtering the event logs, okay, and we're making a couple of filters, so we can have one filter for the events for accounts, another filter for the access of shared objects, and so on. So here we can see I am changing the preferred DNS to reflect sorry, again I need to get you all to this. So what I'm doing here I am changing the preferred DNS from 127.0.0.1 to, so I'm changing this IP address to this IP address. It is logic that the preferred DNS to be 192.168.1.10, because as I said before, this will be a domain controller and in the same time it will be DNS. But that doesn't mean that 127.0.0.1 is not correct. It is correct, okay, but I don't want to get confused, because I will add another domain controller and it will be a secondary DNS, so I need it to be more clear for me and do not get mistake. So I will change 127.0.0.1 to 192.168.1.10 to be just more clear and not to be conflicted. But 127.0.0.1 it is correct, okay, so you can leave it as it is, but as I said before, this is to be more organized, okay. So now we will open the server manager and I will add the Wins server role. So here I think, let me show you a little bit of something here. So we will open the event viewer, okay, and then we will go to the custom view, and here we will create our filters. So here we will create a filter. We will tell the event log to filter our security logs, okay, according to the filter or the event IDs that we will specify for him. So here we will tell him create a new custom log, and then we'll use our PDF. So let's begin. Here we will create a custom log, okay, custom view log that will filter our event logs, okay, according to a group of events that we will specify in this custom log. We will show you all how this will be done. So for example, here we can see that this is the number of events for account management, and as I said before, all of these events are related to user accounts created on the domain controller or locally on a machine. So here we can see that the event of 4720, we will need this event, and we have 4722 until 4735. So all of these events are related to the events of creating user accounts. So we will add them to our custom filter. So we will tell the custom filter to filter the events from 4720 until 4735, okay, and then we can tell him to filter the event. So let's continue, guys. Now we will begin. As I said before, we will make the custom view log, okay, filter the events from 4720 to 4735. I will show you all how this will be done. So here we'll make the custom event or custom view. Here we will tell him to filter the logs, okay, in the security log. So all of the events related to auditing and monitoring the Active Directory and the Windows, all are in the security event log. So let's make it here. Here we'll tell him to use the security, okay, or we will filter the security. We will not filter all of these, we need only the security event log. So this is not correct, okay, just a moment. So here we will only filter the security. So all of the logs, okay, in the or all of the events in the PDF that we are referring to, all of these are or all of the events, okay, are mainly in the security event log, and we will filter this security event log to a couple of filters, okay. Every filter will see a bunch of events together, okay. So let's see. But not all of this, actually. We only need only the security, and then we'll put the events here. So we will put the event 722 this is dash to 4735, and if you need a single event, you can put a comma. So for example, if I need an event that is not between a number and a number, you can put a comma. Okay, for here for example I have 4720, so I put a comma and then begin 4722 to 4735. So these are all of the events. For example, here we have 4737. This is not after 4735, there is a number between them, so here we put 473 or 4737, okay, or 38. And then we'll begin the event from 4741. So here we can see if we need a couple of events, event numbers are consequential, or they are from a range from for example from 1 to 7, we can type them in this way. If we need events that are not between two ranges, we can put a comma. As we see here, we have 4720, and then we have which is not between 4722 and 4735, so it is done separately, and then we have a comma, and then we put the ranges between, or the range of events that are consequential, or they are in the same range, and then we have 4737 and 4738. So this is basically what we will do. We will put all of the events. Okay, this is all, and then we will name the view and name it account event. So we name it account management events. Okay, account management events. Okay, here we can see that these are the events. So basically all of these events are from the security event log, but they are filtered. So the security event log contain a lot of event numbers, so we only filter them to a certain event IDs that we need. Okay, so this is all, and we can create a bunch of filters, or we can create a large number of filters. So we can do this. Okay, every filter will have a couple of event IDs to appear when we click on it. Okay, so we can see here this are the events. So here now I think we will add the Wins server role. So here I am adding the Wins server role. So here we'll add the Wins server role. Next, and then the Wins server role. Okay, next, and then install. And then the Wins server will be added. And then he will create another custom log. Okay, and then we'll go to the other event, which is, or the other category, which is called account login and logon and login events. These are the events related to the Active Directory users logging in and off machines in the domain. Okay, so this is also an important events we need to revise every time, and these are the event numbers and description of every event. So here this is the numbers we need to add. So here this is the numbers. And here is the description of every event number. You can read it in the PDF. So now we will make a custom log, and then we tell him that we need the event log, or to filter only the security. Okay, and then we put the events here. And remember, we need all of the events level to be critical. We need to check on all of this critical warning and so and so. So we need to tell him to, or click on all of these. So we are making these custom views to make the events more filtered, and we can get the information directly and don't need to search a lot of time, or to search for a long time for certain events. Okay. Here, as I said before, here remember to click on all of these. Okay, in the previous one I didn't click on critical warning, verbose, error and information. This is the type of events. Okay, so they are categorized according to if this is a critical event log or an informational event log. So you need to click on these. Okay. So these are the events. We can go further here. Can go further, and then these are all the events. And when you click OK, we will give it a name: account login and logon events. Here we can see also these are the events. We have two events filters. One, name it account login and logons, and account management events. Access to shared objects. This is also the number of events that refer to a user accessing a certain file or folder on the file server, but we need first to enable the auditing option in the group policy. We will do this later, but now we are doing the filters only. So now we will do this. Okay, and we will go, and before that we will make a custom console and put all of the things we will access during this lab. So for example, I need to access the Active Directory domain and users, and to access the DNS, and to access the DHCP. All of this we'll put it in one console. So we'll type run and MMC, and then here we will add the Active Directory domain, Active Directory users and computers console. So we can access a lot of things from one place, so we don't need to open the Active Directory user console when we need to access the Active Directory users, and we don't need to open the DNS console when we need to access the DNS. We will put all of these consoles in one console. So we'll add the Active Directory users and computers, and DNS, and event log, and group policy, and the Wins services. Okay, and still here is the Wins, and add So a custom console, it is briefly, or it is a way that we can access a lot of programs or a lot of consoles in the domain controller from one place. Okay, so here we will save this console and name it PatientZero console. Here we can see that this is the Active Directory users on computers, and this is the DNS. And here, just a moment, and here we'll make something called reverse DNS. Okay, just a moment here. Here we will create something called reverse DNS. As we all know that the mission or the function of the DNS is to translate the name of the PC to the IP address of the PC. As for the reverse DNS, this is the forward DNS. So the forward DNS, its function is to translate the name of the PC to the IP of the PC. As for the reverse DNS, it is the opposite. It translates the IP of the PC to the name of the PC. Okay, so we'll make a reverse DNS zone. Next. This is the network that we will that we are using. It's 192.68.1.0. This is our network that all of our servers and workstations will be within this network range. Here we can see the Windows server is working. Remember, if you are auditing access to files and folders on the file server, or we need to audit Windows services, okay, on the server, we need to open the audit option. Okay, so here we are opening the network connection setting, and then we will add the Windows server here. So we'll enable NetBIOS over TCP IP, and then we'll add the IP of the domain controller, because the domain controller is not acting as a DNS only, it is also acting as a Windows server. Close. And then here we will add some forward DNS zone. What is the forward DNS zone? That when you need to go to the internet, so you need to give him the DNS that gets you out to the internet. We will put the IP of the router and the IP of the DNS or the public DNS of Google. Now we'll make a new custom view. Now this is we call access shared objects. So here we will go and add all of these events. Just a moment. So now just a moment here. So we'll add the events. Then at the end we will make the custom view name. So read carefully the PDF and apply it. Okay, so I'm just forwarding, or I am just fast forwarding the things, so not to bother you all with it. So here we will make another view for the schedule task logging. Sorry, here these are the events. Okay, so I'm fast forwarding things. Here I am just adding or making the events. So here this is our, or these are all of the custom view logs. Okay, and we are doing it according to the PDF, so just refer to PDF and make the events. Okay, so we're doing all of this. Here we are making the custom views, so I'll make all of these. Okay, so just remember to click on all of these. So here if we return to the PDF, just return to the PDF and make the event numbers as we have listed here. Okay, so make all of the event as listed here. Okay, so here all of the events are listed here. So let's go again, just a minute. So here we can see that I will show you all the events one by one. So these are all of the custom view logs. Okay, so here you can go to the properties and see this is, and edit the filter. These are the event numbers. Okay, so we'll click on all of these. Okay, so these are the event logs. Okay, number, or the event ID numbers, so you can have all of them. And then audit, policy change, properties, edit, and these are the numbers, and critical. So these are custom logs we will use to monitor our server. Here properties. Okay, and then edit, and these are the numbers. Okay, and then properties, edit, and then this is the numbers. Then access shared object, properties. Okay, critical, error, information, warning, verbose. Okay, and then properties. So here we have finished our event or custom event logs. Okay, let me pass here it very quickly. Have another one called process tracking. Anyway, so we'll go to the process tracking. These are the process tracking. Okay, these are the events, security, and then we will name it process tracking. Okay, and then make another new one, PowerShell. Sorry. So this is all for the video, or hope this video is informative for you all, and I'd like to thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.